Why not? Because you're my dad. It's. I glanced at my mood ring, the stone a yellowy orange, which meant my emotions were unsettling. It makes me feel unsettled. Dad glanced at me. Unsettled wasn't one of my usual vocabulary words. Dad finally drove out of my neighborhood and into the major roads. He didn't ask any more questions about boys. Instead, he turned up the volume for his favorite radio talk show, All Things Considered, and we listened to people from NASA discuss the space program. Dad usually shared his opinions about the stories, but today he was quiet. I couldn't tell if he was really listening. With Mom in the hospital, he was probably too preoccupied to pay attention. We finally reached the medical center, a section of San Antonio crammed with hospitals, clinics, and the University of Texas Health Science Center, where people learn to be doctors, dentists, physical therapists, and researchers. Mom was at the Methodist Hospital, but instead of going there, Dad parked at Baskin Robbins. What are we doing here? I asked. Getting ice cream. What else? Even on the worst days, I wasn't the type to turn down ice cream, especially when I had a chance to enjoy it without Carmen and Jimmy around. Come to think of it, I hardly ever had one-on-one time with Dad. I liked pretending that I was the only child sometimes, a totally spoiled only child who could order whatever she wanted. Can I get whatever I want? I asked. Of course, Dad said. I got 2 scoops, Rocky Road and chocolate chip cookie dough, and a chocolate-dipped waffle cone. Dad ordered 2 scoops too, chocolate and vanilla, but he asked for his ice cream in a cup. I shook my head. Sometimes adults have no imagination. I was halfway through my dessert when Dad said, I wanted some alone time with you before going to the hospital. We need to discuss a few things. Like what? He took a spoonful of ice cream and stared at it. We need to discuss your mom, he said. Today's surgery is a very important part of Mom's treatment, but the doctors need to make sure they get rid of all the cancer cells. They're worried the cancer might have metastasized. What does that mean? I asked. Glad Carmen wasn't around to supply the definition. It's a fancy word for spreading. You mean the cancer traveled outside the breast? Maybe, but to make sure it doesn't grow into tumors, your mom is going to have radiation therapy. That's good, right? Yes, but the treatment has a lot of side effects, so your mom's going to be under the weather for a while. I moaned. What is it? He asked. I hate the word under, I explained. Why? Because it's so negative. I was thinking about it this morning. How we call anesthesia putting the patient under, and surgery going under the knife. And now you're telling me Mom's going to be under the weather. What does that mean anyway? If the weather is something that happens in the sky, then aren't we always under it? If going under the weather means we're sick, then being above the weather should mean we're feeling healthy, right? But think about it, no one ever says above the weather. They might say they're on cloud 9, but that's not the same thing. And why cloud 9 anyway? Why not say you're on cloud 5 or cloud 16? Who came up with the number 9? Did someone look at the sky one day and count? I didn't mean to go on and on about weather and clouds, but when I feel nervous I tend to ramble. Okay, I ramble a lot, but I don't ramble out loud. Dad took my hand and squeezed it. I guess I had an off switch on my palm because I immediately hushed. Usually, when Dad silenced me this way, he let go of my hand right away, but this time he kept holding it. He bit his lower lip, and I knew that if he had a mood ring like mine, it would be black, too. I just don't know why your mom got sick, he said. It's not fair. Lots of things aren't fair, I said, thinking about how Carmen was so smart without even trying, while I broke a sweat every time I opened a textbook. Dad smiled and released my hand. You're right, Chia. We can fill a whole book full of things that aren't fair. Lots of people, for example, don't have a nice house like we do. They don't get new clothes every season. They don't go to places like Baskin Robbins for ice cream. Lots of them are alone in this world. He paused a moment because his voice was starting to tremble. It's okay, Dad. Nobody asked to be sick, he went on. Just happens, and all we can do is deal with it. I nodded, wishing I had the perfect words to comfort him, but all I could say was, it's okay, again. I looked into my ice cream cone. The last bites had melted, making the cone all soggy. Why did all the good stuff melt? Soon we left the ice cream shop and headed to the hospital. The lobby had an information desk and signs to the cafeteria, the gift shop, and a chapel, but Dad walked straight to the elevators and pushed the up arrow. First the elevator beeped, and when we got to Mom's floor, Beeps from call buttons echoed through the hall. Doctors and nurses' pagers beeped too, and so did heart and blood pressure monitors and intercom of before every announcement. All that beeping reminded me of items being scanned at the grocery store. Who knew hospitals were so loud, and how could anyone rest with all that noise? She's in here, Dad said, leading me to the door. When I thought about Mom in the hospital, I pictured a dozen machines attached to her body and a tube stuck down her throat and a bloody bandage wrapped around her head. Of course this was ridiculous. Mom's head was fine. I must have watched too many hospital scenes on TV. Luckily, she looked okay. She was asleep, her hair spread upon the pillow. Her lips were pale, but only because she wasn't wearing lipstick. She had an IV and a splint on her finger with a red light to monitor her blood pressure. The sheets tucked into her armpits. I couldn't see her chest, but I could tell it was bandaged. Dad took a chair beside her, reclined it, and stared at the newscast on TV. The sound was muted, so we had to read the headlines. Burglar caught on tape. Car accident on Loop 1604. And local unemployment on the rise. How depressing, I thought. No wonder I hated to watch the news. I walked to the window ledge to examine the vase of roses. I smelled them and touched their velvety petals. The card said, Abrazo y besos, hugs and kisses, followed by all of our names. I recognized the handwriting, Dad's. He'd also brought a present for Mother's Day, a photo of Carmen, Jimmy, and me in a frame that said World's Best Mom. I turned to him. You're really sweet, Dad. These are the perfect things to cheer Mom up. He nodded. Maybe we can buy her a big balloon tomorrow. Jimmy would love to pick it out, don't you think? He'll want to keep it for himself, I said, and Dad had to agree. Then he pointed to an empty chair. Why don't you sit down, he suggested. I nodded an okay, and when I sat down I thought about my promesa again. Would a 5K be enough? Maybe I could promise to do it 2 times in a row. Dad had closed his eyes for a nap, so the room was quiet. How could he relax when I was feeling? I checked my ring, still unsettled. Then I remembered the blue smudge envelope that Gumwad had left in our mailbox. I pulled it from my pocket and opened it. Inside was a card with a kitten clasping a branch, its legs hanging free. The front cover said, Whatever you fear, you can overcome, and inside it, because you are not alone. The picture showed the same cat, but this time a pair of hands reached to catch it. There was a personal note, too. Just wanted you to know, Gumwad wrote. If you need any help with anything, you can count on me, your friend Roberto. Leave it to Gumwad to mess up. I wasn't the one who needed a get-well card. He meant this for my mom. She's the one who called him Roberto anyway. I shook my head as I stood the card beside the roses. That's when I heard someone whisper my name. I turned. Mom's eyes had opened. Her fingers weakly waved me over. Hi, Mom, I said, taking her hand and kissing her forehead. Some hair had fallen near her eyes, so I brushed it aside. How are you feeling? Wow. Woozy. Want some water? She nodded. I filled a glass, lifted it to her lips. When she finished drinking, she turned her head aside, and then she clenched her lips and blinked as if fighting back tears. That's when I saw the 9th bikini top. She must have worn it to the hospital. Chia, said Dad, his voice startling me because I thought he was asleep. I nodded towards the dresser. Can you put that away? Picked up the bikini top. I'll take good care of it, I told Mom. I'll hold it for you, okay? Just for a little while. She smiled. You can have it, mija. You can have all my bikini tops. Take them from my room when you get home, okay? Okay, but they don't fit. She laughed a little. They will, Chia. Someday soon, they will.